Our greatest regrets would have and could have been avoided if we had some guardrails in our life. If we had financial guardrails, if we had moral guardrails, if we had relational guardrails, if we had professional guardrails, if we had guardrails within our family, some of those regrets would have and could have been avoided if we had guardrails in our life. In saying that, future regrets can be avoided if you are willing, and if I'm willing, to put some personal guardrails in our lives. And this is a great way to live our lives, but there is a challenge with this. And we will be addressing this over the coming weeks. And it is that culture doesn't encourage guardrails. Culture or the world, they don't encourage any kind of rules or any kind of firm guidelines at all. Culture is perfectly fine with painted lines, suggestions and warnings. And when I say painted lines, like general cautions and suggestions, like that center line on the road, I can veer over that as much time as I like and there's nothing stopping me. I can park on a yellow line, nothing's physically stopping me from doing that. The painted lines that we hear are gamble responsibly or drink responsibly. And in theory, that's great advice. You should do it responsibly. But what does responsible look like? Everyone's responsible is different and everyone's lives are different. It's more of a guideline than it is a guardrail. It's more of a center line or a painted line than it is a guardrail. Culture also says, wait until you're ready when it comes to sex. But again, that's a guideline, not a guardrail. It's different for everyone. If you ask a boy, they're born ready. I don't know why I smiled weirdly like that. That's not in my notes, okay? But listen to your heart is another one. What is your heart telling you? Another guideline, not a guardrail. And this is great advice. I'm not saying disregard all of that. But in our culture, no one wants to be told no. I don't really want to be told no. And I'm sure you guys don't want to be told no. But that's why culture disses guardrails. And the thing is, you won't be applauded for your guardrails if you have them in your life. Culture will diss you. And do you know what else culture does? They don't only just diss those guardrails, they will shame and mock you when you end up in the ditch that guardrails would have prevented you from. They shame us when we end up in a ditch financially. They shame us when we end up in a ditch morally or in our relationships or in our family or if we work too much. They will shame us. They will mock us for getting into that position, but they will also diss the guardrails that you put when you place them in your life as well. And I want to share a little story of a guardrail that I've learned to set up in my life. And it's about putting my family first. So currently there's just 2 of us and a couple of cats, but they don't have feelings. So it's just me and Porsche. Well, they don't feel neglected. Sorry, you can leave if you do. You good? Yeah, good, yeah. But there's only 2 of us, but that doesn't make it any less or more important. And hopefully the foundations that I put in our relationship now will pan out when and if children come along in our life. And even though it's just my wife, it is just as important as if we had children as well. And I think putting family first can be a challenge for some. And I think especially when you run your own business. It's hard to put those boundaries in place because you need to continue to make sure that there's still money coming in. You've got that responsibility. I need to make sure there's still money coming in. And I don't run my own business. I'm currently an employee, but I have put boundaries in place in my own life. In my job, I don't take appointments on the weekend. That's just a no-go. And I don't take appointments every night of the week. And these are very common practices. Nights and weekends for our industry is very common. I've allocated 1 night a week to do late appointments just for those people that can't meet me during the week. But it's still hard when they call me and ask me to meet me after hours. and I'm booked on that Thursday, it's hard for me not to go, oh, that's right, I can do it on another Wednesday night. It's fine, I've got time, I'll do it. But I've had to learn to say, no, I can't. I can see you next week because I'm busy. You know, I have the spare time to take those appointments, but if my spare time gets taken up by work, how will I have margin in my life to invest in my wife or invest in other relationships that are really important to me? Or how do I have time to invest in what is actually important? And yes, it may mean that I might not be able to help some of those clients, but if I don't draw a line in the sand or put guardrails in my life, where does it end? It'll always be, it's all right, okay, I'll quickly do it on the weekend, you know. I know it's really hard for you to meet me, and then next week will come around, oh, can you do this? Yeah, I did it last week, it's fine, I'll do it. The next thing you know, I'll be working every night and every weekend. There will be financial consequences for me. There are financial consequences for me when I limit my availability. But in my life, my relationship with my wife is a priority. And when my children are around, they will be the priority as well. I have to learn to trust God that when I put in guardrails in my life, then God will provide in other areas. And there will be seasons when I have to work really hard and it will be busy. But I know it's much harder to come back from going over the line than it is to not go near that line at all. Culture tells us we need to work hard now so we can enjoy it later, which can mean work 24/7 now so you can enjoy it later. But how can you enjoy it later if you don't have that family there anymore? Because you never prioritize them. Or you don't have a relationship with your children or your spouse because work was the priority. You've missed out on so much time building that relationship with your family. Or what if you don't have your health and you aren't able to do all those things that you put off because you had to work hard then? And sorry if it seems a bit harsh, but I'm passionate about this. And it's because I believe it. Like, family to me is so important. And I think families are missing out on relationships with their parents because they always seem to put work first and family second. And I'm here to say that your family needs and wants you more than they need that big fancy house or the fancy car or the fancy guardrails, so fancy gadgets. Well, you do need fancy guardrails. If you opt for guardrails, if you opt for personal guardrails in your life, you may not be celebrated by those around you, but I promise you, you will have fewer regrets.